In this lesson, we're going to be reviewing and working on dividing decimals. So, taking a look at division vocabulary, the number that is outside of the division symbol is the divisor. The number that's inside is the dividend, and of course our answer is our quotient. So divisor's outside, dividend inside, and the answer is our quotient. So we want always the number in the front, the divisor, to be a whole number, meaning not to have any decimals at all. So we can make the divisor a whole number by moving the decimal, but if you move the decimal in the divisor, you also have to move the decimal for the dividend, or the number underneath the division sign, the same amount of decimal places. So if we start with our first problem and it's 3.4, I want to move the decimal over 1, and if I move it over 1 in the divisor, I have to move it in the dividend. So we're just going to practice moving the decimal. It's now 34 and 102. In the next problem, I'm going to move it over 2 places. So instead of 0.25, it becomes 25. But in the 15, there isn't a decimal. It's actually understood always to be at the end. So if we move it over 2 places, we have to fill those in with zeros, and that becomes 1,500. Next one, if I move the decimal over 2 places in the front for the divisor, I have to move it over 2 places for the dividend. We don't have to write the zeros in front of the 2, and then this becomes 10.4 underneath our division symbol. In the next problem, if I move the divisor over 1, I'm going to move the dividend over 1. So this becomes a 12, and then it becomes 1.56. And again, the biggest thing to remember is don't forget to change both numbers by the same amount. So if I move the divisor 2, I move the dividend 2. So let's practice moving and making it a whole number so it's easier to divide. So remember that the first number is our dividend, and that's what goes inside the box. And the divisor is the second number, and that's what goes outside the box. So we are going to move the decimal over 1 place in our divisor and also move it 1 place in our dividend. So if we do that, this becomes 3, and it's going to go into 75. So when we divide, the first thing we'll do is we want to know how many, guess that's not working over there. We want to know how many 3's can go into 7. So how many 3's go into 7? There would be 2 3's that go into 7. So 2 times 3 is 6. And we put our 2 up here, and then we subtract. 7 minus 6 is 1, and we have to bring down the 5, which is 15. So how many 3's go into 15? 3 times 5 is 15. And so our solution, which is called our quotient, would be 25. Okay. Now, when we go into the next problem, remember that our 1.42 is inside of our box, and our 0.5 is outside of our box. But we want to move the decimal 1 place, and if I move it 1 place in the divisor, I move it in the dividend. But if you remember now, it's between the 4 and the 2, so we bring our decimal straight up to the top. So how many 5's can go into 1? None. So we'll move over. How many 5's go into 14? We have 2 5's that go into 14, and 2 times 5 is 10. So we'll subtract, get a 4, and bring down the 2. How many 5's go into 42? 5 times 8 is 40. So we'll subtract, and we're not quite done. We need to add another 0 so that we can divide until we don't have a remainder. So 5 times 4 is 20. So our quotient is going to be 2.84. All right, in the next problem, remember our 0.4 is going on the outside and our 1.23 goes on the inside. So to divide, we're going to move the decimal over one spot and we move it over one spot. And then we bring that right up to the top. So does 4 go into 1? No. Does 4 go into 12? Yes. 4 times 3 is 12. So I'm going to bring down the 3. Does 4 go into 3? No. And so since it's after the decimal, we have to add a 0 to hold that spot. And then we're going to add another 0 to keep dividing. Does 4 go into 30? Yes, it goes into 37 times. So 4 times 7 is 28. So we're still not done. So we need to add one more 0, and we're going to bring that straight down. And 4 times 5 is 20. So we put our 5 and we subtract. And our final quotient is 3.075. Okay, so in our next example, we've got a long problem. So we have 3.766, and we want to divide that by 1.4. So we're going to move the decimal over one place, and then we move it over one place, and we bring the decimal straight up between the 7 and the 6. So we want to know, does 14 go into 3? Nope. Does 14 go into 37? Yes, it goes in there 2 times. And 14 times 2 is 28. So we're going to subtract 28. And when we subtract, we need to borrow. 17 minus 8 is 9, and we're going to bring down the 6. So now we have to figure out how many times 14 goes into 96. So we could estimate, I'm going to say 6 times. 6 times 4 is 24. Bring the 2. 1 times 6 is 6 plus 2 is 84. So I subtract 84. And we know that 14 doesn't go into 12. Make sure we put our 6 up here. We're going to bring down the other 6. All right, so we need to see how many times does 14 go into 126. Well, we know it has to be bigger than 6 because 6 times 14 was 84. So maybe like 8 times. So let's multiply to get 8. So 4 times 8 is 32. Carry your 3, and that should be, that should be 112. So it looks like we need just a little bit more. So let's take 14 times 9, 36. 9 times 1 is 9, plus 3 is 12. There we go. So when we subtract, we get 0, and it looks like it's 2.69. So your job is to try these next couple on your own and do division with decimals.